Welcome, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Wolf.
And this is Sal. How's it going, everybody?
So, Sal has a new wardrobe.
Hey, I'm like the emperor with no clothes. I need a wardrobe.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. He's wearing the same little crap he always wears. It's
It's
drab green. It's like he's still in the army.
It's all about comfort. It's all about comfort.
Because when I saw you when you first came in, I thought, wow, he looks better or he looks different. And I thought it was the clothes. And then I saw you're wearing the same crappy clothes. It's actually because you've lost 25 pounds.
Yep.
Because of your wife.
Thanks to her, because
she has put you through. Yeah. See, mine was like, she's like, God, you're fat and you're ugly, so you need to lose weight. So I lost weight to look better for her. But Sal's wife actually cares, and I'm just kidding. My wife cares about me a lot. She keeps me on schedule with my medication and keeps me going.
That's awesome.
I have a good wife, and Sal, you have a good wife.
I have a great wife. If I didn't have her, I'd be all over the place.
Here's what's funny, folks. Sal can't eat sugar. He's on a low sugar diet, and I'm on a low sodium diet. I have really good blood sugar, but my sodium level gets bad, and then my blood pressure spikes. So, so that is he's no salt or no sugar, and I'm
no sugar, no carbs, all that good stuff, But that's how it works.
You're looking good. You're doing good. I was impressed. I was like, and you complimented me too.
Hey, we both got to drop some of this weight.
Yeah.
Let someone else pick it up and take it home with them.
Yeah. I've been doing better. I've been doing really good lately. I just lifting all the time.
And that's awesome. Like I said, I've got to get myself back into, the whole gym thing, because if not, I'm just not, it's funny because if you start working out, doing some type of exercise, you always feel better. That's a proven fact.
That's right.
So with that being said, I'm just like, I've got to get back into it. Right now I'm dealing with a lot of stuff that I have to deal with the VA, and you know what I'm saying? So, so hopefully I'll have most of that ironed out and taken care of.
VA
in the
stands
next month
for
or so.
very annoying.
Yeah, that's what most veterans say.
That's right. Well, the place I work at has a lot of former vets that are PTSD.
Oh yeah,
because they get vouchers from the government, but they put them in the most horrible places with not good people.
Oh, unfortunately,
yeah, it's not good. But I'm only there for a while until we get it cleaned up, and then I'll be moving on to greener pastures. So, greener pastures. Speaking of greener pastures, our guest that we have on is from Kentucky. Doesn't get much greener than that.
Oh, the good old Kentucky bluegrass.
Yeah, I've been through there, but I haven't stopped.
Why not?
Because I was on my way to another state.
Oh, okay. Well, same here. But I tell you what, I did.
Well, it's pretty.
I did go visit Louisville for a little bit, and my wife had to do some conference up there in Louisville a few years back. And, of course, we did the sightseeing tour around Louisville as much as possible. And then we headed up to Lexington to go see the horse farm, which was beautiful, by the way.
I bet that would be nice. There's a couple, since you're not a native of Austin, I can show you one day. I'm going to show you. There's a couple ranch roads outside of Austin that both have horse ranches all along there. And
nice.
It's really nice, yeah.
Definitely.
So, our guest, I want to introduce to you guys, and I think you're really going to like her. I don't even want to mess up your name. So can you introduce yourself and say your name the way that it's correctly supposed to be said?
Hi, Wolf. This is J. Lura Ketchledge.
Ketchledge is the easy part. It's a Lura, right?
Does that start with an A? Laura?
No, Lura.
No, Lura. It's an old Welsh name.
Laura.
Welsh name, yeah.
Got it, yes.
Yeah, okay.
No A, just Lura. Okay, got it, yeah. Yeah, drop the first A. It's like Laura, but drop the first A and Lura. There you go.
Lura. Yes.
Awesome,
yeah.
I like that.
So Lura, you have, oh man, I don't even know where to begin. You have so much stuff to talk about. Now, we touched base a little bit. Back and forth, and then we had a conversation, and I don't even know where to begin. I guess we could just start from the beginning. You had a near-death experience.
Yes. Well, thank you for having me on your show tonight. And back in 1979, this will make me sound old, I was 19 years old. It was an April day, and I had a catastrophic accident, and I was killed and then resuscitated. And during those golden moments between life and death, I had a near-death experience.
Wow. I've heard of many people having near-death experience, but I've never spoken to someone who actually had one.
And that's not true.
Great.
My mother.
Oh, okay.
My mother's died twice.
Well, see, I didn't know this.
Yeah,
now
and
I
that
know.
changed her life. It completely changed her life. She's had a really, really. I'm still trying to get my mom to come on. I want her to talk on the show. I don't know. If
Good
she's
luck
willing,
with that one.
if she'll do it. But so Laura, what? Okay, so because that was the beginning of your. Before that, you had told me that you were not like into any kind of paranormal or anything. Like that kind of set the tone for the rest of your life.
No. I'm kind of a linear thinker, things that make common sense. I'm not much of a dreamer. So when I had this accident, guys, this was before the internet. This was before the books and the TV and the general knowledge about what a near-death experience was. But during my near-death experience, it just showed me the truth. It turned all my values, all my core values upside down. And I had a really, really tough time coming to terms with it. When I went into the hospital and I tried to talk to the doctor, he asked me what kind of drugs I had taken, which I'm a non-drug user. And then I even went to a therapist afterwards to try to, make sense what happened to me. And she said, well, are you having a pity party about your broken hand and nose? And I was shut down and shamed. So I didn't talk about it. And what happened afterwards, the after effects were the most profound things. Would you like to hear about that?
Oh, my God. Yes, please.
Well, the after effects for me, having a near-death experience, it changed me. I had a friend that was killed in a terrible accident in New York City, and I saw him after he died. I saw my aunt when she died, and I didn't even know she was dead, and it was very, very scary. In fact, I ran through the house like a mental patient when she came in there because it was literally seeing the ghost. So I didn't handle this very well. I wasn't one of these, new age, let's hold hands, sing kumbaya and chant, I'm not that type of a person. So I had a hard time, pulling it together that sometimes I'd know who was calling before they called. And I had a little bit of psychic abilities, very rare, very random, certainly not smart enough to tell me, don't marry that guy. It wasn't like that. But I really started coming to terms with it when I was 25. So it took me a few years. I wasn't all that brave. But once I did, and once I started to let go of the fear, amazing things began to happen.
Don't marry that guy. That one is, it makes me laugh. I'm sorry. And there's no knock on you at all, but it was just like, don't marry that particular guy. I think that's been a big one for pretty much anybody.
I didn't get, messages, buy stock in AT&T, things like that. But I did get messages or things that saved my life. Would you like to hear?
Definitely.
When I was 34 years old, I was very sick, and I went up to the Mayo Clinic, and, I saw the slew of doctors, had tests, yada, yada, yada. Everybody said, you're okay. We've done these advanced tests. You're all right. You'll ride it out. You'll be okay. It's autoimmune. Well, one morning, my grandfather walked into my bedroom wearing his flannel shirt, favorite pants, and shoes. He sat at the edge of my bed. He put his hand over my stomach and said, your spleen, your spleen. And then he evaporated. He died when I was 12. I wasn't horrified. I was so glad to see him. It was joyful, but it wasn't long enough. Well, I had to go into the other room, and my mom's a registered nurse, and I said, God, where's your spleen? I didn't know where in your body your spleen was. So I went to the doctor. I said, I think I need to have my spleen out. I think something's catastrophically wrong. And he said, would you like, no, you're fine. We've had these tests. We won't repeat them. Well, a few days later, my grandfather whispered in my ear, and I was, very wide awake during these experiences. spleen. So I knew a doctor in Orlando and I drove over there and I said, I'm going to sound that, crazy. But I told him what happened. And he looked at me and he said, I practiced medicine for a long time. I believe you. And I believe you enough that let's do a splenectomy. Well, long story short, I said, well, when can we have the splenectomy? Will you do it this spring? And he said, how's about Wednesday? When I went to see the doctor, they got in there. My spleen had hemorrhaged. It was the clot the size of a man's hand. So if you had tapped on my belly or waited another week, I would have bled to death.
Oh, God. Wow. And all because of your grandfather. That's interesting.
Yes.
That's
if he
crazy.
hadn't done that, I would have stayed in bed, watched some soap operas, taken some more aspirin, which I was taking by the handful.
Oh,
and
God.
I didn't, and that's an anticoagulant. And I don't like Tylenol for me, so I take aspirin, and I'd taken a lot of them and added to the bleeding spleen. So he saved my life. But when I woke up from the surgery, it was so horrible, such a miserable surgery. I don't know if he did me a favor. It was a terrible recovery. I got double pneumonia afterwards, and it was terrible. But what I want to say is that the love that you have with somebody when they die, it is a strong. They could be dead for 20, 30 years. It doesn't matter in this reality. The love is still there, and he reached out from beyond the grave, and he saved my life. And I'm so grateful for that. Had I not had the near-death experience, I doubt if I would have had the ability to perceive him.
Man, that's just, my mind's just racing right now because, I can only imagine.
He was my guide when I died. My grandfather was my guide. Yes.
Wow. So
he was my guide.
Could you elaborate on your experience from the time it happened, from what you can remember from start to finish? Could you elaborate on it?
Well, not being the most sensible kid, I rode a horse that was way too fast, far above my abilities, and I had a big ego. I thought I could ride this horse. Now, I've been an equestrian my whole life, but coordinated is not an adjective. You would say with Lura Ketchledge. So I got on this horse, and I started to race these other two fellas, and I knew I was going to fall. I knew I was losing my balance, and I didn't even hit the ground. I was swearing a little bit, I can tell you that, but I didn't even hit the ground. I was taken, lifted, drawn out of my body into this dark corridor, like velvet. It's like you're shooting through space. So I had left my body and, had the near-death experience. Parts of it I remember very vividly, and I can explain it to you. Other parts where when I was returning were just being taken away from me. So I had these great epiphanies, and I saw the truth that when I returned, some of it was almost erased, and I couldn't take the memory with me, but I was fighting. I didn't want to come back at all. And here I was, 19 years old. I can say that now because I'm 60, but I was a real pretty girl, and, I had a whole bright future ahead of me, and, I would have hated to miss it. But being in the next dimension, the continuation of life it's really great. It's wonderful. It's wonderful, great.
And your experience, Laura, is this other dimension that you went to, okay? Because I have my own theories and opinions and things about, but for what you saw, what do you think it like? Can you explain it to us a little bit, like what it was for you?
Well, sure. Sometimes I'm not a good explainer. That's why I wrote all these novels, because all of these psychic experience and near death, I didn't talk about it for 30 years. That's a long time to keep silent. So it bubbled out into novels. That's when I wrote the near death saga. But I can tell you, we live in physical reality, Wolf, and this is a big school we go to. Your memories erased from all your past lives. You shoot into the physical reality, and life's tough. It's tough for everybody. Nobody skates through life if you live long enough. There's illness, tragedies, war, all of the above. But there's also this is a great, exquisite learning school. I mean, it's a tough school. And we go through this life and we learn these lessons. And when we die, it's not so much returning home as everyone says, I didn't have a religious epiphany at all. I'm not saying this mockingly, but I just didn't have it. I had more of a spiritual awakening. But what I realized, there are layers or rings, a different density than physical reality. And most people, when they die, they don't leave physical reality very far. They don't go into the outer rings or what they call the bardos, or you could call them consensus realities. And past those, if you go past those, which most people don't, is source, is the source. And the source going there is the most mind-blowing of all the experiences you could put together. I could sit down and I could talk to you for a week and I still wouldn't be able to convey the joy. It's not like, I'm not talking about like going to heaven, but I'm talking about source is really what all of the personalities of all of your lives, where still I'm not going to really convey it. It is sort of cloud-like, or you don't have a physical body. You are a point of consciousness.
Yeah, can I elaborate on something? I don't want to interrupt, but because you're struggling a little bit to try to explain what I seen, and I didn't have a near-death experience, but I have. This is going to sound weird, but every 5 years, and there's people that are close to me that can attest to this. I have these dreams, and they get really vivid to where it's like almost like when I come out of the dream, it's almost like I didn't know I was dreaming. It's like, and I've relived. I'm a believer in reincarnation. Now, a lot of people are not going to like that when I say that, but I can tell you right now, I've seen some of my past lives, and I've died over and over again in this world. But when I have these dreams, I'll relive them, and I've even had a guide that was kind of showing me, and like it was me from the future, which is really weird. And he's shown me all these different past lives, and he says, I am you and you're me. But we were distinctly two different personalities, but we kind of melded together, and I could see through his eyes and he could see through mine. And I was like, whoa. And it was like, oh, that makes sense. But then I immediately woke up and I was like, that makes no sense, because it makes no sense in this reality. Yeah. It does not make sense of what you were seeing and what you were experiencing. So when you were talking about that hits home to me. And that was one of the questions I was actually going to ask you, is if you believed in past lives. And yes, I do believe in that.
Absolutely.
And I believe that, well, I also take it a step further. I believe that Christ was actually a teacher, and that I think that one of the things he was trying to teach us was that we are not just born again, like in the spirit. People think that in Christianity that's all it is. Mm-hmm. I believe that some of the books were taken out of the Bible, and I think that some of it dealt with that. And I think that there is
the spiritual aspect of it.
Yeah, I think he was even saying that we were born again. Like, you must be born again because you don't learn everything. And one of the things I wanted to say to the audience too, then I'm not going to take over here, Laura. I'll give you the floor, but I just wanted to say this.
No, this is fascinating. Go.
Well, people. Okay, when my nephew, he's actually here in the studio right now. He's helping us with the show. When he was younger, we had a talk, and I don't know if you remember this or not. You were a little bitty fella, and he asked me a question one time about people who it seems like they're winning in life. And I don't remember exactly how he worded it, but he said, these people, it seems like the rich, powerful people who are making all these decisions for the rest of us, that it's like they're winning, but in reality, they're the losers. And what I mean by that is, in this school that we're in of life, being rich and powerful and having control over other people does not make you the winner. It's kind of like when you're in high school and you see these people who it looks like they're just doing really good and they're the popular people, and you see them 20 years later, they haven't changed. They're still spinning their wheels at Walmart, and they're in your hometown, and you're off doing whatever, and you're like, wow, that sucks, But that's kind of how I look at these people who are like these powerful politicians that are doing all these corrupt, bad things. I'm not going to get into politics or name names or whatever, but you see all these people who are doing these horrible things, and these horrible dictators and all these other whatever, and it looks like they have, but in reality, they're the ones that are flunking school.
very, very insightful. That's a very insightful thing. Yes, when you trample upon other people, when you interrupt their destiny, that's about one of the worst things you can do for your own spiritual development.
You know, Lura, I have to get in on this because this is awesome.
I did learn some things, but they were lessons hard earned. I mean, I saw this room where I had many lives and one side it was all the female lives. The other side was all the male lives, and I really couldn't get over the idea that I'd be a man. But I thought, my gosh, Dad had so many lives. Gosh,
the soul matrix.
I don't know if I got a whole lot smarter.
Right. And see, I had not an experience. I went many years ago when I first met my wife, and we went and talked to this lady who, and I've mentioned this before in a previous episode, that she had a gift, and her gift is talking to angels. That's what, she told me. And of course, she also read, people's, I guess whatever the color they are.
Aura.
The aura. Yes, that's probably the right word. And she told me I was an indigo. And, other things that she told me is she said that I was a first timer, that my soul, it's the first time on this plane of existence, I guess, for lack of a better word. So therefore, some people are violets, other people are what is the emerald or a green color, others are yellow colored, and I'm probably using the wrong words to describe all these.
Well, that's correct. There's blue, there's white, there's
indigos, there's crystal children. There's people who are crystal children, golden children, all this other stuff, and of course, with all this being said, I think back on this. You said you had all these lives that you were looking at on both sides of the aisle, and I find it fascinating. Yes. I find it fascinating because I've listened to this gentleman here as of late. A lot of what he's got to say, and taking it in. His name is Billy Carson. He's got a website, and he's got a channel called Forbidden Knowledge with the number 4. And of course, he gets to talking about the emerald tablets of Thoth, the Egyptian god or teacher, Thoth, however you want to pronounce it. And of course, and in those, he is known as the thrice born. And long story short is that he had, quote unquote, conquered death, much the same way that Christ did. And of course, according to his opinion, Christ went and left, like it's stated in the Bible, because, and not to get this all religious or anything, but I'm just pointing out that in the Bible, Jesus disappears for 18 years and then he comes back when he's 30. Well, a lot of people out there in the school of thought out there that says that he traveled all over the known world at the time. One of the places that Billy Carson believes is that he went down to Alexandria to study at the mystery schools where Thoth or Thought was the teacher. And then after that, he made his way up to the Indian subcontinent up there to learn the Reiki hand healing, and then moved on from there into the Tibetan,
the Buddhist,
the Tibetan mountains.
There's a lot of stuff that says that could be. And then we were just talking about Alexandria and the burning of the library there, because that library burning in Alexandria, I think, destroyed. It gave us amnesia.
Yeah, there
was so much in it in Cleopatra's time. That was one of the saddest things that could have happened with the Alexandria library to have burned.
When I was in college, Lura, there was a professor I had. I talk like I was in college for a long time. I was in college for a little while, and they're like, "Get out of here!" But I chose to drop out and be successful. No, I'm just kidding. I was in college,
Make your
and
own
then
luck.
Yeah, and so I had this professor who was really cool, and he goes, "What is the single most important event, excluding Jesus and Muhammad?" Because he didn't want people to say a religious. Because of course, me as a Christian, I would have said Christ, but he said excluding a religious, Buddha, Muhammad, whatever, Jesus,
any and all those.
Yeah, he said excluding religion. What is the single most important event that ever happened that you could think of off the top of your head? And a lot of people were just thinking back to like World War II, and all this stuff. And I raised my hand, and I just blurted it out. I said the burning of the Alexandrian library. And he says, "Excuse me, who was that?" There's like 50 kids in there, And he had me stand up, and he goes, "Say it again." And I said, "The burning of the library of Alexandria." is the single most important thing that ever happened.
It was the biggest travesty.
Biggest tragedy. Yeah. And he goes,
Yeah.
That's awesome. He goes, you're the only one in this whole class. And so then after class, he talked to me and he was like, you are the only one of all the classes I've had all day who've even, whatever. And he was like, you're going to have a bright future in history. Of course, he was wrong. He was completely wrong. I was a horrible student.
But yeah, it's, going back to your experience and all that other stuff, Laura, I find it phenomenally amazing that you were, your experience, you were there, you were experiencing all these lives, kind of like being able to pull them out of a file and go over them. And of course,
I was shell shocked. I was a kid. I was shell shocked. And when this whole huge event, so many things happened that I can't verbalize. But what I was weeping about before I went back into my body, before I got resuscitated, is that I had to come back because I'd learned so much. I'd seen the truth, and then I came back to physical reality with a very hard thud and a broken nose and hand and a concussion, and everything was bruised from head to toe. I was pretty banged up. When I got, my way to the hospital, I passed out, but I didn't have another near-death experience, and I really grappled with it. Lucky for me, I found some people that I could talk to when I was 25 and got more of a handle on it. I did some reading, Robert Monroe's books, William Buellman's books, and they were very beneficial. And, I did have my grandfather save me, and I have seen, spirits, and there's a lot less fear. So I think that was my big gift, I think, is the... we all plan, what are we going to do when we retire? Where are we going to live when we're working? What college are we going to? Nobody makes a big plan about the afterlife. They're just like, it's like throw it in the air and it'll be what it'll be. Well, you can make plans for the afterlife if you have more information and more focused thought, because when you die, there's a lot more decisions. It's not a straight shot to heaven or hell.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree, and I've always stated, and with Wolf, whenever we have our conversations, that I'm a firm believer that the soul is eternal. It's a small little part of God, the source, whatever you want to call it. I call it God because I'm a Christian, and so you go back to the source where God is the source of all knowledge, of all lives, of all dimensions, and so on and so forth.
I didn't get that far, hon. I didn't get that far.
Oh, wow. And but you got you've got quite a distance. The only, it actually brings to mind a video I watched about a week or two ago in regards to this type of near-death experience. It was a Vietnam vet, and I just ran across it on the internet, and I think it was kind of it was meant to be, for lack of better words. And I listened to his account, and he had a near-death experience when he was in Vietnam, and he got shot down. Long story short, here he is dying, and then he was, pulled out of his body, and he could see, and he said he experienced God, and the only way he could describe it, he said, was pure, unadulterated love. And he had the same reaction you did, that he didn't want to come back. Joy,
yes. Pure joy, and no pain, and
yes.
acceptance. And it's very intoxicating. It's very hard to return, but I was shown what my purpose was. Didn't like it, not happy about it, but I accepted it.
What was your purpose? Do you know? I mean, yes. Can you tell us?
Sure. I was shown in pictures and then writing, and then all of a sudden, when I was asking, what is my purpose, I saw a table with an IV bag on it, and I'm looking at it and like not being happy about it, and then I could hear someone say yes in a feminine voice, and it written in front of me, and in cursive, yes. So I've been struggling with autoimmune disease since I'm 17. Not really a good sport about it sometimes, but I was shown that was my purpose. And I always thought it was something else. I thought it was, maybe, a TV show that I want to produce, or that I'm an author, or that it was my books, or sharing my message, and it wasn't at all. So I was a little shocked, a little disappointed.
I always thought that my purpose was to just beat the crap out of people. And that sounds crazy, but like when I was a kid, I was a very peaceful, calm, and good child. My dad talks about that. He goes, "You were such a sweet child." He's like, "But you got bullied, and then it just flipped. It was like you flipped, like the switch flipped on." He's like, "You started fighting, and you never stopped." And he's like, but it's weird because like me and my brother have talked about it. Like, there's been some people that I've gotten a hold of over the years and just worked them over, and they turn out to be the biggest, evilest pieces of crap. And you're just like, wow, is that a coincidence? Because I didn't beat them up for those reasons, but I did it, So I always wondered, like, maybe that's...
I can't say that I wouldn't have been there to cheer you on there.
I mean, really, because there were a couple guys that I ran into over the years, though, too. And there was one guy in particular, they called him Black Magic. And he's a pretty tough guy. And I ran into him one time when I was working security at a parking garage, and he was heading downtown with his at that time wife. And he told me something that was kind of profound, I guess, shocking to me. That he was like, "Dude, you changed my life." He's like, "Before you, I thought that I was the baddest fool on the planet." And he goes, "And when you did what you did," he's like, "it broke me down. It humbled me." Because he came back for more, and it happened again. And we were both not good people in our lives at that time. And he had this cross on his neck. And I was like, he goes, "I go to church. I'm a deacon at my," he was talking about how he turned his life around. He stopped messing with drugs. He stopped all the booze. And his wife was sitting there, and she was like, she goes, "Baby, you don't even know." She goes, "This man here, he was a fool. And you got a hold of him, and you whatever,
straighten him out."
And he gave me the credit for that. And I was like, wow, I always kind of thought we just, like just kind of forgot about him. It was a forgotten guy that he dropped out of the scene and went on his own, but apparently went on a journey of like self-discovery and became a Christian.
Yeah.
Like he did a 360 or 180, whatever.
And people, even, within yourself, you can do a 360. The girl that had the accident at 19 is not the woman at 60 that you're speaking with. I've had all these, life experiences and lessons, some of them painful, some of them joyful, but they were all a catalyst for change.
Now that is definitely something that I can get on board with, and it definitely falls within what I believe life is about. That Plato, when he put out his philosophies and everything, of course, he wrote all the stories about Socrates, his teacher, and Socrates
was Aristotle's teacher, and Aristotle was the teacher of Alexander.
Right.
Which founded the Alexandrian Library.
Yes. Yeah. A little bit of history lesson there, but going back to what I was saying is that the basic gist of Socrates' philosophy was to get to the truth. And when it came to young people at that time, of course, in that ancient Athens, it was focused on the men. His primary goal was to help the young men of Athens become better people. And so I'm a firm believer that it's got to start with the individual, and the individual has to want to become a better person than they were the day before, and so on and so forth. And the most important way to get that done is to take that first step and actually, be honest with yourself and do some, internal analysis and figure out what's going on in your life that's not good, and figure out what's going on in your life that's positive, and focus on the positive and work on eliminating all the negative aspects of yourself. So yeah, it's definitely a journey that we're taking here. All of us, each and every one of us.
Oh my gosh. It is. Yeah.
Laura, I have a question for you. Do you, because my buddy Scorp, he's real big into this. It's a lady that her name's Glennis McCants, and she does, they call her the numbers lady. And she was on a radio show at one time, and my roommate at the time, he got really into her. And that's one of his big things is numerology. And a lot of people think it's some sort of, because it says ology, that it's some sort of like weird mysticism or whatever, but it's not really. It's just kind of, what you were born under, your life path number kind of gives a little clue to who you are, is what it is. And
I wish I was educated on it. I have no knowledge whatsoever about numerology. I'm so sorry to disappoint.
Would you give me your birthday? Because I could do your numbers.
Yes, August 24th, 1959.
August 24th.
I know that I'm a Virgo on the cusp. I don't know what that means, but I am a Virgo on the cusp. I feel like the cat that's had 9 lives, too. Surviving an accident at 19 where I shouldn't have, and at 34 I should have perished from the hemorrhage spleen. So I feel like I'm on my, lucky cat.
I think that you're, I think that you're right where you need to be as far as I'm concerned. And this is another, those 2 major events in your life are 2 big catalysts or examples of 2 big catalysts you've had in your life. So as far as looking at them in a manner which it just takes you aback, I think you should, you're looking at them the right way as far as their catalyst. They've helped you become the person you are today. I always try to look at everything in a positive manner.
And I have the gratitude because, I am not a saint or overly religious, but I'm deeply spiritual.
Yes.
And I totally believe in, when I leave the house, even if I'm not feeling good or in a bad mood, I try not to take it out on anybody. I try to be as nice as I can to others and to lead more of to be a kinder person. I don't always make it, believe me, because I can have a bad temper, but it's something I'm, working on. When I stepped out of the shadows 10 years ago and, was on television and doing radio shows and having the paranormal teams come to my house, I just thought, why not own it? Why not tell the truth? And maybe people could read my books and where I really go into detailed explanation of life after death and near-death experience and sometimes the connections to ghosts.
Wow. No, I just find that really interesting that, you should say that because there are those out there who believe that, and I put some stock in it. I haven't researched it as much as I would like to, but there's the vibrational frequencies. Every human being on the planet and every animal, every living creature, for lack of better words, has a vibrational frequency. And of course, we as human beings, the goal is to vibrate at a higher frequency. And one way, in my opinion, to do that is to always look to the positives and everything and try to keep a positive attitude about yourself on a daily basis, especially during those times, like you said, when you're just not, you wake up in the morning and you're just not feeling it. It's just not happening. Those are the trying times, but staying positive and like you said, don't take it out on anyone that's operating on a higher frequency, which is the preferred way of doing things, because the higher the frequency, the more, I guess you could say, the more access, the more you'll be in tune with that otherworldly source that you mentioned earlier.
Yes, I think so. I've always come to my own conclusions. I've done some reading about the paranormal, not extensive because I didn't want it to overshadow my own novels. But, I'm a seeing is believing. But when I had the camera crews at my house and the photographers, and they were able to take pictures of orbs right around me. And, I feel like I've got, like a little, my own cheerleaders, my own support group on the other side that, I think we all do. I just think that the veil is a little bit thinner after an NDE. But it was very, very, I had 5 paranormal teams. They didn't know each other. They all came over at different times to my farm and ran experiments, and everybody had Class A EVPs. They've, videoed tapes of orbs and some very, very, hard evidence.
Now, I do have a question in regards to where your farm is at. Do you know if it sits anywhere near any of the ley lines that that cover the planet, for lack of better words?
I don't even know what a ley line is. All I knew is I built it. It was a brand new house. It didn't have a history, didn't have anything like that. But, I had those paranormal investigators at that house. But this happens every place I live. I was down in Florida for a few years, and I had two teams of investigators in 2017 come to my house, and again, positive findings.
Wow, then they must be attached to you.
Following
you, yeah.
You're a beacon.
You're a beacon, yes.
Yeah, I was just so afraid. For years I didn't talk about it. I just wrote about it in my novel when I incorporated real paranormal things that had happened to me or encounters in every one of my books, and my books flowed out of me. I didn't even sometimes know how I wrote them because, I never considered myself an author. The first book I thought was a fluke. The second one was by the time I did number 3, I realized, I had all these things had been inside me for so long. It was like an outlet to explain step by step a near-death experience, astral projection, what it's like to see an orb, what it means, some of the messages you could receive. I got to be creative, but I really kind of stuck to truth.
I think that's wonderful. I think that was probably part of what it was you were meant to do here on this plane of existence.
Yeah, I hope so. I liked writing. It was intense. It took 10 years. And I've got another one that I'm going to do. My book series is called The Near Death Saga, and they're all over the internet, like on Amazon and stuff. If anybody wants to read them, email me on Facebook your feedback. I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, before we go, I'm sorry, Laura, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, before we go, we'll definitely put your email out there. Lura, folks, has done a lot. It's like I said, it's very vast. She's an author. She's made a movie. You were on My Ghost Story.
Yeah, I was on that twice, and an Inside Secret America.
Yeah, so you've been around, and so we are just trying to feed off of some of your greatness. Give it to us. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you're so kind. You guys are just a hoot. Well, I really like your show because you know what I like to do about these shows, because I think the more information people have, and it's positive and more explanation, I think it's a whole learning curve that we're all on. You don't get a handbook before you die.
No, that's correct.
There's not the instructions or blueprints, but when you talk to other people, and I've learned a lot from others, it gives you a general idea, and letting go of the fear and opening up your heart is essential. But one of the things I did want to share, guys, with you, the biggest message that I received or epiphany that I had when I died was how important the true value of being kind, of loving, and being the antithesis of selfish or greedy or mean, but to try to really generally be a good person. I'm not talking about a saint. You're not allowed to be Mother Teresa, but to have an open heart that has love and not bitterness. And, those are the gifts you bring with you when you die. This is what carries over, and this is what really has the most value.
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's a lot of people. We were talking, me and Sal, the other day, and pretty much everybody that's in the studio right here can attest this. We were talking about this, and I'm a big I like Halloween a lot, but I like Christmas too. But the thing I like about Christmas, and this is going to sound weird to some people, but some people are going to relate to it, I like the giving aspect of it. And I'm not saying that because I want people to hear me go, oh, look, that guy's good. I really don't care if you think I'm good or not. That's what I like. I enjoy giving, and I enjoy doing things for people, because there's something that I don't know, man, when you give to somebody and especially when they weren't expecting it, and they're so appreciative, of something nice that you went out of your way to get for them. Every year we get meat, like steaks, and we pass them out to people. and we do it every year. And so there's a lot of people out there. You'd be shocked at how many people, and I'm talking to the audience here, who don't eat steak. They don't eat ribeyes throughout the year. They don't have that kind of money to, so me and my guys that work with us, we get together every year. We've done it for the past, I think, 8 years. And we get, I think last year, how many pounds was it, Anthony? Like almost 200 pounds or something. It was ridiculous, man. It was crazy. And we gave it out to a lot of people who just normally would not have that, And so we do that every year. We give out hams, and things that people don't normally have. And so, it's gotten kind of to the point now to where those people, they wait for that, Christmas time, because that's all they're going to get. And it's sad. It's unfortunate, but it makes their Christmas, and they are able to experience the Christmas,
the spirit
what it's supposed to be for is giving. Yeah, because so many people are complaining, like, I hate Christmas. You know why you hate Christmas? Because you feel pressured to give, and you don't want to give. That's all it is to it. And it's gotten commercialized to where it's like, yeah, buy all this expensive stuff and go into debt. You don't have to go crazy and whatever. But I hate when people say, I can't afford to give anything to anybody this year. Really? Because if you had $5, you could take $1 and go down to the dollar store and get somebody something. Your mom, your dad, somebody, give them something. Because I think that giving is where, and I'm not talking about just giving physical. Give your time.
Yes.
Give your energy to people.
Be of service.
Yeah, a generous heart, a generous heart with good intentions, it's priceless. And that's really what matters most. I was very, very shocked, with my near-death experience. Didn't handle it well, but, I was a 19-year-old kid. But seeing it from the perspective, it really taught me, what is the value? What is the value of things? And it's not material stuff.
No,
and
not at all.
And what you were saying earlier about how some rich people, CEOs that go out and they sell a poisonous medical device that'll hurt people, and they trample everybody to get to the top, and so that they can control and have this money. What a hollow life. What an awful heart you have to have, that you're heartless, really. What a dreadful human being that is at the end of the day.
That's the Scrooge story, because the Christmas Carol is one of my favorites, because it shows you. Now, we were talking about life paths. Laura, I wanted to show you something. I thought you might find this interesting. One of the things I learned about my life path is I'm a 7. Okay. And not only that, but I was born 7/14/75, and I was born at 7 o'clock, and I have like a bunch of 7s. And so supposedly the more 7s you have, the more spiritually in tune you are, or whatever. And I've always felt that, like when we were talking before, me and you, we had talked on, I never felt like I was alone. I've always felt like there was something there with me, but I would sense good things, and I would sense bad things, and I could feel them, and I could feel things that were just angry and evil in places I would go. I mean, like I could be playing with a friend at their house, and I would see things, and I would just be like, I gotta go. I can't be here. I think you're born with that. And so the 7 is supposedly the spiritual teacher, whatever. I know that one of the things that I learned about myself, like I was saying about giving, that's one of the things that when you're on the right side of your 7 life path, that you give. Now, I never really delved too deep into a lot of the other life paths. I know 8s are very good at making money, and that can be good or bad, like we talked about. It's always a double-edged sword.
It's about what you do with it.
It's what you do with it, yeah. And so when we're talking about the 7s, I had a great uncle who was very much on the negative side of his 7. Now, I know that the 7s are supposedly, they either believe strongly in God, or they ego and they think they're God. And you have to walk that line, because you always feel like you know a lot more than others, but it's not for you to it's what you do with that knowledge. You know what I mean? Like how you go about treating people and what you do. And I'm a big believer in that. And I think that the 7s can get carried away with their own attunement, spiritual attunement, or whatever, being attuned to the things.
Kind of like some doctors get into a God complex because
they're so good at what they do.
Yes.
And it's like, and then I know that I remember listening to the lady that wrote the books or whatever, and my roommate was always talking about it. And but I listened to her talk once, and she'd said that sevens were not actually from here, that they're from another place, but that they spend several lifetimes here and then they leave. Now, Sal was talking about being an indigo, whatever, you being a new person.
A new soul.
I can see that as you being so curious and so fascinated with everything that it's infectious when you're around. So
like a novelty. Yeah.
It's really cool because you're a very fascinated person. You're very,
Well, I'm one of those people that, like, much like you, Laura. I think in a very linear fashion as far as, subscribing to logic and reason. I subscribe to logic and reason. I'm very much a pragmatist.
Pragmatic. There you go.
Because the pragmatist does things because, this works. And there's a good reason behind it, because at the end of the day, you don't want a negative outcome from what it is that you're doing. You want a positive outcome. So the pragmatist will do that.
So here's what I figured out. Lura, your life path number is a 2. Now, if Anthony did the numbers right, which he's not that smart, so he might not. He's looking at me like I'm just kidding, Anthony. We know you're a very smart kid.
What is the 2? This is very interesting.
So it says here, this is one of the things that Anthony pulled this up for me, and it says life path number 2 is a vibration of duality and division. The number of truth and learning. Those with life path number 2 are more likely to seek harmony and peace, and are symbolized by relationships, cooperation, and being considerate and thoughtful of others. People with a life path 2 are natural peacemakers because they see all viewpoints in any situation. They handle difficult situations with grace and tend to be persuasive rather than forceful when trying to get their point across. People may often look to them to be a mediator in any argument. 2s tend to be very loyal, and they welcome companionship and the chance to share their lives with someone special. They are more sensitive to others and have the ability to truly listen. 2s are sincere, honest, and open and see the best in people. But because of their sensitivity, gentleness, and loving spirit, it says because of their sensitivity, gentleness, and loving spirit, they make an excellent friend or lover. Your compassion and caring for other people also may cause you to deny your own needs in favor of the needs of others, which can also lead to feelings of resentment and anger. And if you feel threatened or pushed to the wall, you can become the terrible 2. However, ultimately, you do not want conflict. Few things be wary if your life path number is a 2, as your sensitivity can also in some ways be your downfall. Many people with a life path of 2 are overly sensitive, shy, and afraid to speak their minds. Because you are afraid of being hurt, you may avoid confrontation and hold back your opinions. This can cause you to have trouble contributing to a group and may make you feel resentful because you are withholding your ideas and contributions. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. Some of those things may or may not have been you before you had the near-death experience, and having that near-death experience may have opened you up to be more on the positive side of your number. That's just maybe my opinion. I don't know.
I don't know if I'm that nice of a person.
Well, you know what? The fact that you can look and say and know that and say that, because a lot of people like to believe that they're good people and they don't come to terms with, like me. I've come to terms with the fact that a part of my life I dwelt in the darkness and I did dark things and I wasn't supposed to be on that dark side, And I had an ego and I had this. People accuse me of that now, but it's just me being honest, being blunt, just completely blunt, honest. I just, had this abilities that a lot of people didn't. I could do things, and I was always good at whatever I tried, and whatever. And so I thought, well, I'm an amazing person, and I became arrogant, and I became just not a good person, And you have to bring yourself back, And I thank God that He gave me the opportunity to be able to bring myself back into balance, because God humbled me. I mean, I'm not going to lie. He humbled me. I mean, it was me having an epiphany, I guess you want to call it. I saw my grandmother in a dream that was very vivid, and she was in a place where she was not happy with me, and I'd never seen her look at me that way, and she was ashamed of me, And so it brought me to my knees, and then I dropped everything I was doing, turned my life around, and I struggled for a couple years. I was just spinning my wheels, and I kept thinking, what am I doing? God, what am I doing? And then I was crying, like I'm not a big crier, but I was crying. I was in my truck one day and I'm just like, I have nothing. I gave up everything. I went from having a name and being somebody to being a nobody. And I kept questioning that and like, did I do the right thing? And God doesn't, you don't pick up the phone and call God and tell him, what are you doing with me, God? That doesn't work. So he just let me spin my wheels until I got over my pity party. And then I picked myself up and I just said, you know what? Whatever my future holds, that's what it holds. Whatever is my destiny, that's what my destiny is. And once I finally accepted it, then things started to fall into place. When I quit trying to force it, you know, the change just came, and then it just opened up. I got a good job, making more money, doing what I was doing legitimately, you know, and I became, I guess, a semi-successful person. I mean, I had a good business, and I was honest. I made an honest living, and I did things correctly. And ever since I've been very passionate about keeping people away from crime and being in criminality and doing underhanded and nefarious things. It may seem like a quick, easy way to whatever, but like my Jehovah used to always say, that money is no good. It's salted. It doesn't do anything for you. You know, it'll go through your hands and it's gone. And then you got to go get more. And that energy you're burning all that negative energy to get those things. It doesn't last. And like I said, those people are the ones that are flunking school.
Oh my gosh. You could hit the nail on the head. You've got the wisdom of 100-year-old man. You got it.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. Sometimes I feel like a 2-year-old man because you know, but like
no,
I just
got the wisdom of a very, very person that truly grasps and sees the value in life. It's very rare. Now a lot of people just don't, and you really have it.
It's perception. I always taught my nephews. I raised 3 of them. You know, they weren't my kids, but they're like my sons. I raised them, and I told them, I tell them, you know, like, look, guys, it's perception. Perception is the key that unlocks the power of the spirit. Without perception, you're nothing. I mean, you can't perceive. If you don't perceive it, and I take it to another step that you should not only perceive, but you should be able to perceive what others are perceiving. You know, you have to do that because that's how you see the world, you know, like that's what gives you the entire picture. Because I think everybody is kind of staring at this big picture and they're just too close to it. When you step back and you take a look and you're like, oh, I was just looking at a little corner of it, you know? And I think that's important. That's very important. And you know,
but if you go through life and you're trying and you're always trying to seek and to grow and you're doing your best, you know, and you maybe in this world, we're all come in at different levels and different life experiences. But I think as long as you try, you know, you're on the right path. But there's so many who don't even think that way. The tide has gone the other way. And I really kind of pity those people.
You have to. I mean, there's no, I know that there's, I don't want to say the person's, you know, but there's a person that's very close to me and she is in conflict with a couple other people that are close to her or were close to her. And she's angry in the way that they're not really getting justice done to them for what they have done. And I told her, one of the things that you got to do, this friend of mine, I told her, I said that you got to look at it like, okay, one of them in particular is a very lonely person and very sad person. Like me, I have a wife, I have my son, I call my sons my nephews.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I have my brother who had a lot of health issues, things. He's come back from it. I've come back from. We've got a lot to be thankful for. Person, she has nothing. I mean, she may seem like she has power and she's got something, but she's a very hollow and lonely existence. At the end of the day, it's just sad. I was like, you pity those people, and I pity the people that didn't. You know, there were times when I was doing the security job. I was working at a parking garage, and there were these guys that were doing, and this was me being mean, I guess I could say. It was when I'd first come out of my old life, and these guys were doing something they shouldn't have been doing. And here's what I thought. I thought I could stop these guys, and that would be them learning the lesson. But I was so angry and so disgusted at their behavior that I was like, I'm just going to let life sort it out, and later on, they're going to do that to the wrong whatever,
at the wrong place, wrong time,
and it's going to destroy them. And I thought, why am I? And then later on, I thought that was horrible.
Yes,
that was horrible on my part because I'm literally sitting there knowing that that's what's going to happen to those people, and I'm kind of feeling happy that I know that that's going to happen, and that's not correct.
Right.
What I should have done was corrected their behavior, which I could have,
Or at least brought it to their
brought
attention.
her attention, and then maybe down the road it would have saved them some heartache. But I was actually so angry at that point in my life at everything that was happening, because I had no control, that I was actually wanting that to happen to them. And I foresaw that happening to them. And I don't know if it's, just my imagination or legit, but you can't do that. You can't do that, folks. And I'm telling you, you don't go around intervening and trying to save the world. Okay. You're not Gandalf the Gray or whatever,
Gandalf the White.
The White. Yeah. All you can do is do your part. And when you see somebody doing something, you can give them the advice,
It's up to them to take it.
It's up to them to take it. I had an old timer tell me one time, he said, you're big and tough and you're bad and you got all these people that are, whatever. He's like, but this is nothing. He snapped his fingers. He goes, it's over like that. And then you're an old man like me. He's like, and then you look back and all you got is some memories. He goes, and then when you go and you die, what does it all mean?
Yeah.
And I just kind of laughed it off, but you know what? Those words stuck with me. And I remember his face when he told me that. I mean, he's probably dead now. He was an old man then, but I just thought, yeah, because when you're young, you think you know everything.
You're 10 foot tall and bulletproof.
And everybody has their opinion of what's going on and their belief or whatever, and they'll fight you tooth and nail to stay, to hold on to that.
Yeah, but that's normal too.
You're constantly learning, though.
Yeah.
You're constantly learning. You can't stop learning.
Well, let me explain something. Let's say there's two lives you could have. Let's say you have the vanilla life, where you're middle class, things comes easy, you have a nice marriage, everything kind of goes with the flow. There's no real trauma. You're just an average Joe. You have this vanilla life. And let's say you have the other life. It's a strawberry life, and you have adversity, and you have big adversity, and you have challenges, and you have disappointments, and you have triumphs, and you have the roller coaster of life. You're going to learn more in and not being the vanilla life.
Yes.
You're going to learn more from adversity than you are going to have that knowledge to take with you. And that, when you return to source, and when you die, you'll have so much more learning and more value and more depth if you've always trying to overcome the adversity and lead a rich life. So the person that, has the vanilla life and it looks easy, maybe they're not having the experiences that they could.
I totally agree with what you're saying, Lura, because when you think about athletes and all these other people that do a sport, such as think of the power lifters that lift weights. A lot of those guys, if they didn't push themselves and challenge themselves on a daily basis to become bigger and stronger, to be the strongest they could be on a daily basis, then they wouldn't be champion weightlifters, et cetera, et cetera. For people in general in life, it's those obstacles that get in your way. It's what do you do with them? Do you just stop and just sit still and refuse to go any further because this obstacle is in your way? Or do you find a way around it, over it, under it, around it? And of course, like you said, the strawberry life, yeah, you're going to get a lot of those thrown at you, but at the end of the day, the personal growth should be there. And
and you have the vanilla life, and maybe you could have been a great author or a great musician, but you never really tried because you didn't have to.
Yeah, you didn't have to. Those are the people that never had to.
Yeah.
And
what about the chocolate life?
I don't know. I just made up the strawberry part.
That's probably full of a lot
there
of
is some people that had a vanilla life,
Yes, there are. There are lots.
Well, Laura, you said kind of a joke there, but what about a chocolate life where your life is just really just complete misery? Because I work at a place right now.
I don't think anybody benefits from having a tragic life or horrible, horrible things. I've never got that part of the earth learning lesson experience. People that are born with starving children and stuff. I can't see the benefits in that. I'm not that enlightened.
Yeah, because I live in a place. I work in a place where these people they live day to day. They don't really. There's
not much planning going on for the.
They don't
day
have
after.
they're not. Yeah, I'm telling you, they're very poor. and they don't have a whole lot. And it's hard at times because you see them struggle to pay rent that is like very low, you know what I mean? And it's like their electricities are getting cut off all the time. And it's hard. It's hard to sit there and watch, and then you see some of the good ones that are trying so hard, and then they just keep getting pulled down. And it's a struggle to sit there and go and work and then come home and try to like not think about it and go on. It's hard because
try to relax.
And you try to help as many people as you can. Actually, today I tried talking to this young guy who's been getting mixed up with the wrong people, and I told him, I said, you may look at me and think that we're two different people, but we're not. Because I was you at one time. I spent time in youth facilities when I was young. I did a lot of bad things. And I didn't grow out of it for a while. I mean, it wasn't until I was in my late 20s that I figured out what a knucklehead I really was, what a stupid person I was. And everybody looked at me as like this big bad figure, like, ooh, this guy's cool. Because we put people that are not good on pedestals in this society. And I was up on a pedestal. I was this gangster, and they were like, look at this guy, man, this guy's good. And I thought I was somebody, but the emotional wreck that I was inside and the pain that I felt inside was just almost unbearable. And so I tried talking to this guy and tried to explain to him that there is another world out there outside of this bad neighborhood and things that you're doing. And I don't know if I reached him or not, but like he was actually moving. He's leaving that neighborhood. And I told him, I said, don't stick around this area. You have opportunities. You don't have to be stuck in this, whatever.
Yes.
And so hopefully, he'll change. I'm going to pray for him. I think he was a good kid. I think he just got mixed up with the wrong people. But I look at these people who, my nephew here we're talking about, he had a friend who was handed everything. I mean, by the time this kid was 16, he had a nice
brand new vehicle.
Yeah, he was one of those kids.
Wow.
He's still living at home. Doesn't have to do much. Didn't kind of piddled around with college and still hasn't done anything. And he's always been handed everything. And my nephew's the opposite. He's had to struggle. I know even when he came here and I was doing well, I didn't give him. I made him work for it. Now he's running my company. But you look at him and you look at the contrast between him and the other kid. Like, who is actually benefiting? The kid that's not having to do anything, his friend that didn't do nothing, who's still in our hometown, who doesn't do anything, who's never had to do anything, or my nephew who had to struggle and who's actually, now he's going to school to be an architect.
He's living the vanilla life.
Yeah, well, their kid is, but and I let Anthony kind of struggle too because I couldn't just be there. It's hard,
yes,
to sit there and watch your kid struggle, but you got to let them do it because that is the learning they have to learn. And I see you doing that too, Sal, with,
my kids.
Yeah. You got to let them kind of, work it out because if not, then you're just giving them a crutch,
That unfortunately is what appears to be happening a lot more in society today, or it's happened to these young adults.
They have no concept at all, but they'll proselytize to you all day about how they'll pontificate to you. Like, this is how, and like there's a cop that came out there and was talking to me. He's 26 years old and he's trying to tell me how to do my job. And I'm going like, you're half my age, son, and you're telling me how to do my job. And you're just letting this person who was a very bad guy, he was letting this person get away with what he was doing. And I'm like, you're just serving this guy up. Because, something really bad's going to happen to him because you're not doing your job. You'd rather just tell me how to do my job. And so, that's kind of what I did when I was his age. And when I thought back on, I went home that night and I reflected on it. And I remember I was about his age when I sat there and let those guys do what they were doing. And I remember thinking they're going to get what's coming to them. And I thought it was cute, to just let them do it. And I thought that's not correct, And so in our society,
hindsight. We learn from our mistakes. We're always going to make mistakes. I mean, I've made mistakes so big you could drive a truck through the middle of them. I'm sure,
But you've done a lot though in your life. That's the thing. I mean, and when you were talking to me, Lura, about you couldn't even explain like what it's like, when you were on that other side, and I, having had visions of it in dreams and things like that, I couldn't even come close to what you or my mother.
Oh, I felt wonderful.
Yeah, it was a crazy experience.
Wonderful. I mean, it is the most intoxicating bliss, but it's a goodness. It's I look forward to it when it is my time to get to be there. I know that if I navigate things right. But the thing is, when you die and you go into the other dimension, there's a lot more choices that I really never saw coming.
What do you think, though, about people who are not good, though? I don't want to say not good because it's not for us to judge.
They lead a negative lifestyle.
Yeah, somebody who's let me just give you an example of a very dark person, like a murderer or a rapist or somebody who's done bad things. I mean, and an unrepentant bad person, they die. What do you, in your opinion, think happens to that person?
I think that they stay in the lower rings in the astral, and I think that it's not good.
Yeah,
it's not a happy place. That's why it's really important to work your problems and your attitude out while you're alive. Don't think that when you die you're going to just sprout wings and a halo and
go
learn all
pearly
this information. Mm-hmm. It's just a continuation of existence. And if you have a bad attitude, you're taking it with you.
That's really interesting.
But there's also, when you die, there's other souls waiting to help you heal. Like, there's, for the mentally ill people, there's other beings that will, take them to these great places of healing and recovery. Like, the best thing I can equate it to is a hospital.
Oh, I find it really interesting, Laura, that all these guides are there to help you once you pass from this, flesh vessel that we live in. And I'm a personal believer that our souls, which are eternal, that, they move on to the next plane of existence. I believe that we're trapped, in our bodies, and we're unfortunately, we're subject to those biological constraints. And some of those people who have mental, they have mental issues. It's because the body was geared that way, and of course, the soul is stuck inside this body, so they have to work with what they got, for lack of better words. And
pretty awful.
Yeah, it is. But again, in the grand scheme of it all, I do agree with you that that's part of the strawberry life that you have to live. And, and of course, some people get streamlined into a vanilla life. And then, of course, after that, well, it's up to the individual at the end of the day to decide whether they want to enlighten themselves and really figure out what it is.
Bring themselves up.
Yeah, that's going to help them raise their vibration up to the next level. And that allows me, with that being said, this allows me to segue into the question for you is that, have you read the book called The Secret by Rhonda Byrne?
I think I skimmed over that. Is that about the law of attraction?
Yes, it involves the law of attraction. Yes, ma'am.
I think there's some real wisdom in that. I can't, it was a long time ago that I read part of it, and there is some wisdom in that. But one of the things I have to say, when you do die and when you do exit, imagine a vastness that is how you look at these pictures, the multiverse.
Yes.
Of all the planets and stars and stuff, like that times a zillion is what is in non-physical reality. I mean, it's a vast, vast place, and it's huge. So you can travel like with thought. You concentrate, and you can go to a place where your loved ones, your relatives are, and like-minded people, let's say, create their own consensus reality, so to say. So there's a lot of different places, but, having the right mind before you die is essential. But people that are ill, like the schizophrenics and, they're just like walking tragedies. There's great places of healing for these people so they can shed those limitations. It's not a forever thing. But like attracting like, there's a lot to be said with that. There really is it. I'm not a good explainer of it. It's hard to explain things that you're shown and then you take it back and you try to explain.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
You're not the first. I will say this, and I've seen quite a few shows on near-death experiences, and people, are saying the same thing you are virtually, that trying to explain the infinite vastness of what is that, that level of, that plane of existence where you went, it's amazing, and all of them pretty much say that there's no way they can put it into words. Our language is so diminished compared to as far as diminished and underdeveloped in order to try to explain the vastness and all the feelings.
You really hit the nail on the head. Like when you travel, like you're zooming through these layers. It's like you perceive layers of color, but it's like different dimensions and different densities, like physical reality. And the more you travel inward, the less dense it becomes, and you lose your arms and legs, and you become a point of consciousness that can see all around. I mean,
yeah, in all directions.
Big eyes. Yes.
Omnidirectional. Yeah, that's amazing.
Can I ask a question, Laura and Sal?
Yeah.
You too, because I don't know if I've ever asked you this, Sal. And you guys, I have a question. This is a very interesting conversation for me. I'm enjoying this a lot. But here's something. My aunt, one of my aunts, she's an aunt by marriage, but she is a clinical psychologist. And we've traded books back and forth and opinions and read stuff. I read a book called the Sociopath Next Door, or the Psychopath Next Door. I can't remember. But and one of the opinions that I've kind of developed over the years is that when someone is born a sociopath, like they don't have any
mechanisms to hold them back from
well there's no they don't have any empathy. They don't empathize at all.
No conscience.
They don't have a conscience at all. Here's what just the other day I was talking to my wife about this, and I told her, I said, I honestly believe that those people are born beyond redemption. I think that it's not an accident that they are born into that mind, into that body. I think that there are dark souls that come back, and they are just here. I know nowadays there's like these terms like NPC, they call them non-playable characters or whatever.
Yes.
It's a video game term, Laura, but people like my nephews, they use that term for somebody who just doesn't do anything,
They can't think for themselves.
They're just like there,
They're like almost, think of them kind of like robots programmed only one way.
That's
they
it.
Can't do anything outside of
that. And so the sociopathy of that, or I guess, is that the correct word to say this? The
pathology behind it?
It's weird because they're sociopathic. And I've dealt with some people like that. I mean, I've absolutely dealt with people like that have sat there and told me of unspeakable things that they have done. I don't know if these people are being honest or not, but I mean, you're just going like, this person's talking about doing something horrible. Like it would just be like you're talking about doing your taxes.
Or having your nails done at the
like
nail
it's
salon.
like nothing. I mean, it's like, it was a little tedious, but I did it, and it
Say
just
that again?
Yeah. They don't progress. They'll be in the lower rings after death. It's not a good place. I guess it's sort of a version of hell, but it's a hell they create for themselves.
Why were they born that way, though? I mean, because science tells us that they're born that way. And in my belief, I believe that the reason they're born that way is because it's a punishment from the past. There's no they can't be redeemed in this life. Because there's no other point to them at all. Like, in this book that I was reading, there's a wreck that happens on the corner, right? And all these people are standing around, and there's a person who's been killed. Now, you me, Sal, we're going to be like, whoa, that's, oh my gosh, that person is dead. And you feel something, some kind of horror towards it, and it's awful and it makes you feel bad. Well, these people are just sitting there looking at it, right? They can look at our emotions and they can see that we feel bad, but they don't feel anything. And it's foreign to them. It's alien to them for them to even look at, and then they can learn to mimic our emotions and be like us. Cause I've been around people who can do that and they'll tell you that they can do that, but that's not real. It's not a real,
they're not really feeling it.
They're not feeling anything. They don't feel a thing. They could kill pick up a cat and choke it. And it's like, it's nothing. They don't feel anything.
Yeah, like a Dexter. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
Okay. There you go, Dexter. I was watching that show, The Shield, and there was this guy on there, detective. I think his name was Detective Wagenbach or whatever. And we were just watching it the other day. My wife. We're almost done with it. It's a good show. If anybody hadn't seen it,
I might have to check it out.
You got to check it out. It's an older show, but it's good.
Right.
And so there was a scene where this guy he had hunted down this serial killer, and he was just trying to figure out what made this guy tick. And he picked up a cat and it was so weird. Like he choked it and then he felt like this horror, at what he'd done. And he was trying so hard to get into this.
The psyche of this guy.
Yeah. And there's just no way to do it. I mean, they're absolutely without any sort of guilt or remorse. They don't have it. And so you got to wonder, where do they fit into the whole, like, what happens when you die? Well, obviously, the conventional, I guess that would be the word, conventional religion belief, if you're Muslim or a Christian, is that they're going to hell. They're going to hell. Or, if you're a Buddhist, they're going to be stuck doing this.
They're going to be recycled.
But they came back that way. And so how does that fit into it's very fascinating to me to me, I just believe that there are people that were born without redemption. They were sent back for some nefarious purpose. But there is no redemption for them. I don't care what anybody says. There are people that have argued with me religiously and said, "Oh, anybody can be redeemed if God chooses to."
No, they can't.
But that's not true though, because that person was born without the ability to. Because
the Adolf Hitlers and the Joe Stalins and the Ted Bundys of this world, they are not. They have no humanity, no decency, no conscience.
Man, in particular, Stalin. I mean, everybody rails on Hitler and all these other people, but Stalin he killed like 10 times the people that any other dictator has ever killed. And in our society, that's really what's also scary, is that he's just kind of swept under the rug. We had history professors who were just like, Hitler, and, all these other dictators and stuff. But then they just acted like Stalin did nothing. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Because he killed more Russians than the Nazis.
Oh, he killed everybody. I mean, he purged his own people over and over and over again.
And for no reason.
Yeah, because he was a psycho. It was just a slaughter. 150 million people suffered and died in total. It's unbelievable. The number is just a staggering, mind-blowing number of what he did, but we're not going to digress into that. I'm just saying that it's just in our society, it's kind of like there's people that we just don't really give them the credit for the really how dark and evil they are.
That's true. Well, and also just to throw that in there is that first is you're talking about these people that there's no redemption in accordance with the Buddhist tradition. Well, they're going to keep being recycled over and over again because
to what purpose? I mean, why are they around?
Because that is only something that the universal creator can answer.
That's it. The source. Only God can tell us why they're allowed to come back and cause misery and pain.
Well, they have a soul. They have an everlasting soul. That's what they give. The way I believe it is God gave them an everlasting soul. So even though they'll never learn their lesson, for lack of better words, they're going to keep getting recycled. The Buddhists, that's what the Buddhists say, that you keep coming back, being reincarnated until you learn the lesson. These poor people that are like that, unfortunately, probably will never, ever learn their lesson. Thus, they will be destined to be recycled back over and over and over again. And of course, if, times in between that, like Lura said, they're going to stay down in the lower rings, i.e. the lower levels of vibration, because obviously they're not doing anything to elevate their
status,
their way of thinking, their personal growth, i.e. their vibration. So, and when you think of it all in all, on a in a very logical, rational reason, if you've got the people that are going to go to the highest rings way out there, you got to have those that are going to stay down here at the very low rings.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you, Laura?
It does. It's kind of, well, on the scary side, because I went through one of those lower rings. It's not a good place.
Wow. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, what was it like?
Well, I went there to rescue
That's
someone.
That's the other question I was going to ask you, because
my only rescue mission, because I'm not that good. I'm not one of these like astral, people that can go out of body and do things like that too often. But I got it like almost a call when I was out of body, and I went and I
okay,
found
hold on.
this guy.
Before you say it, this is very exciting. Okay, I'm sorry for being so excited, but okay, we haven't talked about this off the air. Okay, folks, I'm just going to tell you all that right now. I had a friend who had undiagnosed PTSD. I'm almost positive. He took his own life. And
I'm so sorry.
My mother, he was one of my best friends. My mother, who never met the guy, my dad had met him, but my mother had never met him. Me and my mother were estranged for several years. So anyways, she had never met him. And then my nephew, my brother's son, who had never met him, both started having dreams about this guy. And in these dreams, they were following me to go and talk to him. And I was dreaming about it. But what was so weird about it was like the place where he was at, the way they described it to me, was the place that I was going to try to find him. And it was in a dark room with no doors. He was trapped in there. And now I'm not even going to get further into that. Does that sound familiar to you?
Yes.
Oh,
well,
my gosh.
I knew the man that I was, I had met him when I know this guy, and I don't want to go into great detail about it, because it would give him who this person was. And he was very attracted to me, and I was very attracted to him, and I liked him. But he died, and I was able to find him, and I wanted to get him out of this lower ring. He wasn't in a good place, and, he wasn't going to budge, and he was just there. And I said, maybe we knew each other in another life, and he was glad to see me. He didn't seem surprised. And then it was over, and I couldn't reach him, couldn't help him. But when I knew, he was a very handsome man when he was alive, and we were very attracted to each other, but didn't act on it. So I was pretty surprised to have encountered him, but I couldn't help him.
That's just amazing. That's totally. I mean,
mind blowing.
But it's
he had brown eyes that I could drown in. I even have a picture of him on my computer. I mean, I really never forgot this guy. I was always very attracted to him, and then I had met him on a train, and it's very sad. I mean, I would have loved to have been his girlfriend, but he wasn't he was above my league. He was a better looking man than I was, a young girl, and he had money and he had more going on. I wouldn't have. I would be too middle class and not sophisticated enough to have kept him. But there must have been some sort of connection, or I wouldn't have found him.
Yeah, absolutely. Laura, you were such a fascinating guest, and I'm not just saying that. I'm being serious. I am really
very kind.
Well, you got a lot of. I mean, this is a pretty awesome conversation. Let me ask you a question, okay? Now, I have a couple friends of mine. One in particular, his name is, we call him Scorpion. He had a head injury when he was a teenager, and I'm actually trying to get him to come on. He's here. He's in the back. I'm trying to get him to come on. He goes to a place that I call the City of Night. All right, folks. So we're going to talk about that place on the next episode. It'll be released next Friday, and we're going to discuss this City of Night. And for now, that's all we got with Lura Ketchledge. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We hit 5,000 subscribers, and we're really proud of that. So Everyone, continue to tune in every week for a fresh new episode of Paranormal Roundtable. See ya.